You're listening to Ideal Practice, episode number 21. Today we're talking about what it really means to bring your true self, your real self, to be as you can be in your business. I know we say we want that, but do we really? That's what we're talking about today, the pros and cons, the ups and downs, and whether or not this is a crazy idea. So, stay tuned. Hi, I'm Wendy Reeves, and with over 2 decades of experience in the private practice world, I've built my 6-figure business while learning a lot of lessons the hard way. This is the first podcast that shows you how to apply the principles of energy, alignment, and strategy to build a practice that is profit-centered, but people-forward. This is the Ideal Practice Podcast. Hey guys, this is Wendy. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Ideal Practice Podcast. I love that you're here. I love that I'm here with you. How are you doing? How are things going in your neck of the woods? Here where I live in East Tennessee, it's actually been kind of sweet lately, y'all. Things have cooled off a little bit. The temperatures have actually been in the 80s instead of the mid and high 90s lately, and I personally I'm loving it. There have been a couple of nights just in the last few days when I have spent several hours sitting on my back porch, enjoying a good book as the sun went down and the stars came out. It's just been really, really sweet. And last night before dinner, I took the dog, Ava. We call her Sweet Ava Longnose. Ava is my collie, big, shaggy, 65 pounds worth of hair is what she is. Ava and I went for a walk in the College Woods. It's a lovely little spot here in town behind a local liberal arts college that I adore. And it was just really sweet. I haven't done that in a while, and it felt so good to get out and just move a little bit after a long day of sitting in front of the computer. I hope you're doing a little bit of that as well. And if you have been out for a walk, I hope you're taking me with you. I don't want you to miss a single episode of this, y'all. I'm bringing it to you fresh and new every week. If you haven't already subscribed, the easiest way to do that is just go to followthepodcast.com, followthepodcast.com/ideal practice. And you'll see a range of places there that you can choose to follow the program. And I would love for you to subscribe and do that so you don't miss anything. So thinking about the podcast and what I want to talk about today, if you've been with me for a while, then you know that last year I was doing something very different. So last year, I spent the entire year testing an idea. And the idea was that I have done quite a bit of public speaking in my life. And unlike a lot of folks, I actually enjoy that. I know that sounds a little nuts. It seems like public speaking is like right up there with the fear of snakes, is among the top fears that so many people have. But I actually enjoy it. I enjoy being on a stage. I enjoy connecting with an audience. I love seeing your faces light up when all of a sudden you get something that you might not have gotten before. And so I thought, well, if I love speaking, then you would think video would be a nice platform for me, another way for me to connect. So I gave it a shot. And all of last year, I very steadily and with great discipline and determination created a video every week, except maybe 1 or 2. I ended up creating 50 weekly videos, kind of like this. It was a great try. It was a great experiment. There were a lot of things I learned along the way. And as I was testing different ideas and trying to get used to the whole concept of saying everything I want to say in like 3 minutes or less, my other half, my partner, Anne, kept saying to me, I really feel like you should try a podcast. I really think that would work well for you. And always having been a bit of a contrarian, my gut reaction to that was, well, I don't want to do a podcast. Everybody does a podcast. Why would I want to do a podcast? But she had a point. What she said was she felt like being on video, I just wasn't able to really be myself the way I want to be. And she felt like if I could show up here, perhaps more of who I really am would show up as well. And so indeed, that's what I'm trying to do. And now you guys are going to kind of watch me learn through this platform as well, because I'm trying to learn how to be more of myself here with you as well. And I don't know if you're noticing this, but one of the things that I am already picking up on is kind of a bad habit I have. And I do this as a therapist as well. When I'm in a conversation with the client and those moments when something gets really tender or really special, or somebody's going deep, or you just know that you're kind of touching on something that's really almost sacred, it's really important, my tendency is to drop my voice. And I will speak really quiet. And I've had clients say to me, huh? What? And I will have to consciously raise my voice and speak a little bit louder. And I'm noticing that I'm doing that here. And I think a little bit of that is just the medium. I think there's something about recording this for you that feels so intimate. It feels like I'm just sitting across the room from you. You're on the other side of the coffee table and you're in your chair and I'm on the couch or whatever. And we're chatting and I find myself lowering my voice. When I go back and listen to the episodes, I'm like, Wendy, honey, speak up. So I think that's kind of funny. I just thought I'd share that with you so that you will know what I'm working on, even in this brief moment that I'm hanging out with you here. I want to talk today about what it means to be authentic. And part of that is being as real with you as I can. But being real with our clients, being real in our business, being real with the public as the face of our business, although that sounds like a great idea, I don't think it's always so easy. I don't think it's always so easy at all. And I just kind of wanted to explore that a little bit. I don't think I have ever, I don't know if I've told you all this or not, but I have an accountability partner that I speak to every week. This is a great idea. You should do this yourself. We are business friends and real friends and have been for a very long time. And we speak once a week, basically as kind of a goal-setting accountability. What are you working on? What did you do last week? What are you doing this week? Etc. And my friend Michelle calls me Country Woo. That's her nickname for me. I suspect that has something to do with the fact that I say y'all, but it also has something to do with the fact that I actually am into kind of what a lot of you might call the woo side of things, which I just call the energy side of the world. Energy, everything is made up of energy. So I don't think that's nearly so crazy, actually. But it isn't something I actually talk about a whole lot. It is something I want to talk about here on the podcast. Because if I have learned anything in my life, it is that energy impacts everything we do. The energy we bring to the table, the energy we are carrying around in our head, the energy that we put out into the world, the way we manage our own energy. Oh my gosh, it's so important. And so when Michelle calls me Country Woo, she is tapping into that part of me that, likes to do a few interesting things. For example, do you know that I love and follow a lot of, some really good tarot readers online? I don't understand astrology, but I find it super interesting. I've been listening to Esther Hicks and Abraham Hicks for a very, very long time. I had never actually heard of any of that until, I don't know, probably in the last 5 or 10 years, but I have found it super, super interesting. And it's something I kind of want to dive into, something I want to know more about. In fact, I've got some really cool interviews coming up here on the podcast where we're going to be talking about some of that stuff that I hope you will find interesting. But I do want to acknowledge that being real might feel a little bit radical to your clients, to your audience, to your public, to your community, depending upon what that looks like for you. A few years ago, I remember a colleague of mine moved into town from out of state, a really, really sweet guy whose area of specialty is doing anxiety work. That's his thing. He really loves working with people around anxiety. And he's a super cool guy who, among other things, is into the outdoors and wanted to explore how he could weave something like hiking or experiential work into his counseling practice. But one of the things he asked me when he first moved to my small southern town was, Wendy, every now and then I kind of like to do a little tarot spread with my clients. Do you think that's weird? And should I tell people that? And I said, if that's who you are and that's what you do, yeah, you should tell people that. You can, of course, use judgment. You will have some clients who will be more open to that than others. But I don't think you should pretend to be something you're not. And if you have a tool that you like that works for you, I think you should use it. Just be ready to talk about it and be able to help people understand how and why you like to do that. But of course, if that's who you are, then that's who you are. And I don't think it makes any sense to be anything else, right? So I have a question for you. What does it mean to be radical? What does it mean to be a little out there? And is it possible to be a little bit radical? And how do you define that? I know that y'all, I don't know about you guys, but my first thought is you may be thinking of that politically, depending upon where you are in the country. And yet there's so much more to it than that. For example, is it radical to refer a client to an energy healer? Now, where I live in a fairly conservative kind of, I won't say the buckle of the Bible Belt, but, I'm in the Southeast. Faith is a big part of our culture and a big part of the language where I have always lived. So when I began referring clients to my favorite energy healer, I had to find a way to talk about that would work for them inside their culture, their value system. And I did. I have a way that I do that works just fine. But does that make me radical, or does that make me just smart? Because I know there's lots of different ways to get better. And if working with an energy healer can help you get better, I feel like I have an obligation to tell you that. Well, how about this? Is it radical to ask somebody what their rising sign is or what their sun sign is? Is it radical to suggest to a client that I might pull an oracle card before I start my day? Because I do. I find it really helpful. It sort of helps me choose something to focus on or think about during the day. Would I tell a client that? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. It kind of depends on whether it feels right or appropriate at the moment, right? Does that make me radical, or does that just make me real? How about this? Is it radical that I want you to run a practice that is profit-centered, people forward? Based on the looks I get when I say that in a talk, based on the reactions I get online sometimes, I would say that is a bit radical. Although I wish it wasn't. I wish it was completely ordinary and something we didn't think twice about. When is it okay to take a stance that's a little bit different than what others might expect of you? When is it not only okay, but healthy and strong and right and real? Because here's the thing that I'm not going to pretend isn't true. It is true. When you are real, you're going to get resistance. Not a lot of my clients, but when I refer somebody to an energy healer, it's not unusual that a client of mine might worry that somehow goes against their faith or their religious perspectives. So of course I want to be sure I know how to talk about that. When I talk about my favorite tarot reader, my community might raise an eyebrow on Facebook. Wendy, what? I didn't know you were into that kind of thing. And my colleagues may criticize me when I talk about money. That does happen. I'm happy to say it doesn't happen a lot, but it does happen. Sometimes overtly, sometimes less so. But when you are real, folks, when you take a stand, when you bring your true self to the fore, whatever that is, there's always a chance that there are going to be folks who are a little bit bothered by that or look at you sideways. On the other hand, I kind of think that's okay. Those might not be your peeps. Those might not be the people who are right for you. Or it might be that they are, but you have to learn how to bridge that gap in a way that is respectful for you as well as it is for them. And I just kind of a little aside, I want to make sure you know that I'm clear about this. I'm not by any means suggesting that you dump your stuff on clients. Y'all know better than that. We all know the proper way and time when self-disclosure might be a thing. And there are plenty of healthcare-related and clinical situations where that's not appropriate at all for all kinds of reasons. I'm just saying, be who you are and know that when you are who you are, a lot of times that means you are sort of staking a claim in a way. If I am for this, it means I am not for that. If I tend to think this way, that might suggest that I tend not to think another way. And that means I am a human being with an opinion. And that opinion guides how I show up in the world. And some folks might not like it. Just a couple of months ago, I gave a talk. It was online, but it was to a fairly major conference, and there were something like 200 or 300 folks online while I was talking about what I think it takes to create a healthy private practice and some of the factors that were involved. And you guys know me, of course. Yes, I talked about mindset, especially when I was talking about the pricing aspect of your business. I talked a lot about mindset. And in the comments that I got afterwards, I literally had hundreds of people saying, this was really helpful. I never thought about it this way. It's about time somebody said this. Gosh, this is true. Where do we learn this? Why doesn't no one teach us this? That kind of thing. I got a lot of that. But I also got someone who said, yeah, I don't know about this. This sounds a little bit like that law of attraction stuff, and I don't care about that. That's just another example of how capitalism is screwing us all over. Only the way she said it was way more eloquent than that. It was interesting to me. It's interesting to me that when I encourage people to take themselves seriously, stand up for themselves, and treat themselves with respect, and insist that their industry do the same, that sometimes brings backlash. I'm okay with it. I'm perfectly okay with it. I just share that with you as an example that sometimes when you are real and you say what you really think in an appropriate, healthy, adult, respectful way, you're still going to get some pushback sometime, my friend. Are you okay with that? Are you okay with that? Personally, I hope you are, because I think the world needs the real you. Because when you're real, this is what I think, when you're real, you help heal. The truth is, those who push back will be in the minority much, much more often, y'all. Much more often, people will respect you for being real, respect you for speaking your truth, respect you for just being who you are. If you're funny, be funny. If you're serious, be serious. If you're quiet, be quiet. If you're a talker, be a talker. All of it, of course, with self-awareness and, all those kinds of appropriate things. I'm always careful about that. But the truth is, people will respect you more because you are real. And to be honest, from a business perspective, your ideal clients will respond to you better and will find you and want to be with you when you are real. I'm thinking about something that happened back when one of the first times I really had to test this idea in a way that was super, super uncomfortable for me. This was several years ago. I got involved for the first time ever in my whole life in a political campaign. That was hard enough and scary enough. And then not too long after that, I was invited to and convinced to take a stab at it and run for office myself. And I did run for a local office on the county, at the county level. And for the office I was running for, you had to declare a party. There wasn't any way around that. And when you make your living as a psychotherapist, which is all about essentially neutrality, coming out of the closet in a way in what was the minority party in my area was really scary at first. And one of the things I said to my friends in the beginning was, is this going to kill my practice? Is this going to kill my business? What's going to happen? And one of the ways that I handled that was I had a very, very, very strong boundary. I never, ever, ever mentioned what I was doing in that office in my counseling practice, and vice versa. Never. It was like there were two different Wendys. So you talk about being real. In that particular case, I was still real, but there were two of me in two different places in a way. I was fiercely protective of the counseling office and of my work with my clients. I never, ever mentioned what I was doing outside that office, although, of course, everybody knew. It was all over the papers. I had signs all over town. It was not something that I was hiding. But I'll never forget, there was a moment 2 or 3 years into what turned out to be a 4-year term, what ended up being a 4-year term. One of my clients, who I don't know this for a fact, but I suspect was on the other end of the political spectrum from where I was. It didn't matter. He was a really great guy. I liked him a lot, and we were doing some good work together. He brought up my public service because there were videos of the meetings that we held, and those were publicly accessible, and of course people watched that. I never mentioned it, but he brought up, he said, by the way, I wanted you to know I was watching the meeting the other night online, and I heard some of the things that you said, and I was holding my breath. I was holding my breath, waiting to see, okay, where is this going? Because in a way I had been expecting trouble about this all the way through, but instead what he said was, you know what? You know what I thought about that? You were the same person there that you are here. It was the same Wendy. You're the same person. And I could feel myself kind of go, whew, is that a good thing? Yeah, that was a good thing. It was a compliment. He meant it as a compliment. Because I was real, I am the same person. Who I am here is who I am there, because I am who I am, and I can't really be anyone else. That doesn't mean I don't have healthy boundaries, obviously. But I am who I am. I say what I think. And what I want you to know is that when you bring your real self to the fore, when you show up in all of your quirkiness and all of your awesomeness, others who feel slightly outside the norm in some way, they will feel seen and they will be drawn to you, particularly because of who you are. Not in spite of, but because. Especially because I think we as healers, because we are trained, because we are experts in how to create a container, how to hold a safe space for our clients, for their growth, we have the ability to be both and. We can see and love and respect people where they are and call them to something better, whether we are on the same page with them in terms of culture or faith or politics or anything else, or what part of the country they're in. None of that really matters to us, does it? Not really. Our ability to see them where they are and hold the space for them to become more of what they want to be is powerful medicine. Because we are real with them, we make it so much easier for them to be real with us. Does that make sense? I hope so. Of course, I want you to use good judgment. Being real doesn't mean being crazy. But when you find yourself hesitating about something you want to say, or you have something you might want to share, or something that just might show in your conversation with a client, some random comment you might make about where you went over the weekend or what you did last night, it doesn't matter. When you find yourself hesitating, I just want you to ask yourself, are you being true to yourself by holding back? And who could you serve, or would you serve, by standing out? Are you being true to yourself by holding back? Who and how might you serve? Might you better serve others by standing out? Yeah, let me know what you think about this. Shoot me an email, reach out to me through a DM, or post a review and tell me. I'd love to hear your thoughts about this. Thanks, everybody, for being here. I hope this is making you think. That's what I got for you today. Have a great week, and I will see you next time. Bye now. Hey, folks, just a quick note to tell you a little about a super cool tool that I've discovered. When I decided to dive into the podcast world, I was a total newbie. I had no idea how things worked. How do and where do you record the audio? How do you create the artwork or upload it or get it to show up in, directories like Apple Podcasts or Spotify? Better yet, how do you share it with your lists or on your social media platforms? How do you get reviews? Turns out all of that was pretty easy once I discovered Buzzsprout. Now, Buzzsprout is this incredible platform where I'm hosting my podcast, the one you're listening to right now. And the folks there had everything I needed. An easy way to upload episodes, an automatic way to get listed on all the right directories, all kinds of ways to look at and track my stats. Not that I always understand them, but I'm trying. And even a way to create a fun little soundbite each week. Not only that, but they have tons of videos and tutorials that help me learn the basics, and their Facebook group alone has made the whole learning curve so much easier. The customer service has been amazing too. So if you're thinking about launching a podcast, do yourself a favor and check out Buzzsprout. You can get started for free, y'all. And in fact, if you use the link in the show notes below, you'll even get a $20 Amazon gift card just for signing up. Well, that's a win right off the bat, right? What's not to love about that? So check out Buzzsprouts in the show notes below and get started with your podcast today.